May God's love continue to fill this space, and peace be with you. Amen. Most of you know I have a 17-year-old high school junior at home. So English has been sort of at the forefront of our lives for the past 9 months. And what I've learned in this process is that James Joyce novels give me a headache. I appreciate the significance, but the stream of consciousness is a ride I do not need to voluntarily jump aboard. With this said, today's gospel unleashed a flow of thought in my mind that would have made Joyce jealous. At one point, I was considering multiple props for the homily. I contemplated giving Randy a call on Tuesday and asking if we could install a screen so we had some visuals going on. That didn't happen. I did go on a hunt for a very specific book, which I couldn't find. Weirdly enough, the hunt for that book brought with it another full chain of very weirdly connecting arches that just kept me going. So here we are, Sunday. Brace yourselves. There may be some turbulence on this ride, but bear with me. We will get to the point safely. I'd like to introduce you to my rock. I've had this rock with me since I was 18 years old. I was sitting on the beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and that rock got swept up onto the shore and into my hand somewhere around 1 a.m. Now, I assigned a story to the rock. And by the way, I assign stories to many things. One of my favorites is when I found a hole in my right sock, and I apologized to my left one for doing nothing offensive before I banished it to the cleaning rag pile. This rock's story was one of a giant underwater boulder. It had been beaten by the currents for centuries, managed to save itself from becoming sand, and with a little bit of faith, it finally made its way out of the deep water and into my hand. Its journey wasn't planned. It just was. And it simply had hope that it would find safety outside of the water one day. Why have I kept that rock? Can't really say. I do know it's been with me ever since that night. I don't carry it around like a security blanket. It just sits in a box. Every now and again, it comes out, and I think about the story that I gave it. Why that rock? Why that story? I can't say for sure, but the best answer that I could find lies in that book that I went on the hunt for this week. book is called The Bible Story, and it's by Arthur Maxwell. I did find out that that book wasn't just a book. It's a series of books. 10, as a matter of fact. What I've come to understand is that somewhere out there in the early 1970s, there was a book salesman who gave away volume 1 of a 10-volume set of children's illustrated Bible stories to every doctor, every dentist, every library, every bank, and every restaurant in Western North Carolina. That book was a constant in every waiting room that occupied my childhood. There were 2 illustrations in that book that I would turn to no matter where I was, and for at least 2 minutes, I would not be fidgety or bored to tears. The first illustration was of Abraham with his son tied to an altar, about to be sacrificed. This picture was the equivalent of a horror movie to me. My mom told me, don't look at the boy who's tied up. Look at the light shining on the old man's face. What I wanted to tell her is that man with the light on his face, he's holding a knife. That story we covered a couple of weeks back. The next image in that book that captured me is much more relevant today. It was David and Goliath. My mom would smile when I would ask her about that picture. There was a very small boy. And that boy had a piece of cloth, and in that piece of cloth was a rock. To think that little rock and that little boy could take down that giant. That story. And by the way, I'm going to pause for a second. I have to say thank you to that really bad book salesman, because no one ever bought volumes 2 through 10. But that aside, that story gave me push to grow. I loved then, and I still do today, the story of overcoming insurmountable odds. Speaking of, Mark's gospel. In Mark's gospel, Jesus silences a storm. The image it conjures is something akin to the opening scenes of Gilligan's Island. The castaways being tossed about in their tiny little ship. The difference is, on this particular minnow, Jesus is asleep. The professor, Marianne, Ginger, Mr. and Mrs. Howell, and Gilligan all go wake him up. They are panicking, drenched, scared. And he wakes up and says in many fewer words, watch this. Watch what believing in my Father, your God, can do. It can calm the seas, protect you. You will not have to spend the next 3 seasons stranded on an island with a transistor radio. We learn, just like with David and Goliath, that belief has power. Now, this brings me to a bumper sticker. I see this one frequently. It says, coexist. The word is written with spiritual context representing many different faiths. And I love that message a lot. What I struggle with is some of the mysticism stories a few of the faiths represented in that bumper sticker bring with them. I find myself so caught up in that thought that I quickly lose sight of the message the bumper sticker represents. Coexist. Mark's story today and the strength David had facing Goliath, honestly, there's some mysticism in there. I say a few words and the seas will calm. I am a small boy capable of bringing down a giant. Now, there's some Spider-Man energy in that one. When we ask someone to have faith, we are asking them to believe in something they cannot see, and in feeling something that someone or some may even question its authenticity. This is asking a lot. My journey this week of story and thought brought with it chaos. The random thoughts, the movement of a mind that couldn't grasp onto something of focus, missed out on a basic concept important to both. The words Jesus actually said on that ship. Peace. Be still. In peace, we find strength. In peace, we tap into the magic within. In peace, we find ourselves and community. In peace, we can allow the power of God to guide us. In peace, we find strength. In peace, we find compassion. And in peace, we find a rock on a beach, and we have an epiphany. Amen.